Welcome. Today we are focusing our attention on a figure whose life was a dramatic study in contrasts. Someone who moved, well, sometimes turbulently, between the dizzying heights of Hollywood and the trenches of grassroots political action.
We are talking about Margaret Ruth Kidder, better known as Margot Kidder.
Born in 1948, passed away in 2018, and known globally, of course, as the defining Lois Lane of the original Superman franchise.
Kidder's life spanned 5 decades on screen, and that resulted in a career that earned her some serious accolades.
Oh, absolutely. A Saturn Award for that iconic role, Canadian Film Awards.
And even a Daytime Emmy Award much later in her life. But if you really look beyond the filmography, her story is one of profound complexity.
That's it, exactly. She was a major star, yet she was constantly fighting against the constraints of that fame.
Right, using her platform to shine a light on deep personal struggles and really urgent political causes.
And that complexity is precisely what drew us to this examination. Our goal here is to conduct a really thorough analysis of the source materials available,
Detailing her prolific career, her incredibly difficult personal journey,
especially her significant struggles with bipolar disorder and mental health.
and her tireless, often uncompromising work as an activist.
It's important to preface this by acknowledging that this exploration requires some sensitivity.
Yes, we are dealing with lifelong battles with severe mental illness and, ultimately, the tragic circumstances of her death.
So we commit to navigating this material with the factual impartiality and respect that her legacy deserves. We're just trying to understand the whole picture of this powerful yet vulnerable individual.
That layering is the central tension, isn't it? The glamorous star versus the radical voice.
It is. What's truly fascinating is that she achieved this massive blockbuster stardom, yet she remained fundamentally committed to low-budget independent cinema and theater.
She was effectively using her fame as a means to fund her own authenticity.
A great way to put it. She was a dual citizen of Canada and the United States, and that cultural, geographical, and political duality really shaped everything about her trajectory.
Yes, she was never just one thing. And that refusal to be neatly defined starts right at the beginning. So let's unpack this incredible journey, starting from her roots in a place few future Hollywood stars ever call home.
The far north of Canada.
Margot Kidder's beginnings are genuinely unique in the history of global celebrities. I mean, she was born Margaret Ruth Kidder on October 17, 1948.
And not just in Canada, but in Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories.
Exactly. For anyone who hasn't looked at a map, Yellowknife is remote.
Very remote. It's the diamond mining capital of the country and sits incredibly close to the Arctic Circle.
That is just an unbelievably isolated, rugged environment for a future leading lady to start her life.
And that environmental reality offers some crucial context for her later life, doesn't it?
It really does, especially her comfort with rough conditions during her activism, like camping in North Dakota during winter.
Her family history is tied to the movement around these remote locations. She was one of 5 children, and her mother, Jocelyn Mary Wilson, was a history teacher from British Columbia.
And her father, Kendall Kidder, was an American engineer, an explosives expert originally from New Mexico.
Right, so her father's career meant the family was constantly moving. He managed the Yellowknife Telephone Company from 1948 to 1951.
Which meant they didn't stay in one place for long at all.
This kind of nomadic childhood, combined with a large family dynamic, it must have contributed to her internal restlessness later in life.
Indeed. But what truly sets her Canadian roots apart is how deeply her family was embedded in Canadian public and cultural life.
This is a significant aha moment when you look at the sources.
It is. Here's a surprising fact. Her sister, Annie, married the acclaimed Canadian actor Eric Peterson.
Who is an absolute cornerstone of Canadian theater and television.
And perhaps even more significantly for her own political identity, her brother, John Kidder, married the prominent Canadian Green Party politician Elizabeth May.
That connection is key. It shows us that political and cultural engagement wasn't just some late life choice for Margot.
No, it was her family inheritance.
The performing arts and political activism were literally shared around the dinner table.
And we should also mention that her niece, Janet Kidder, is also an actress, continuing that performing legacy in Canada.
Shifting to her internal world. The sources are very clear that her early life was marked by significant personal struggles.
Struggles that really prefigured her later, highly public crises.
Kidder had mental health issues from a very young age, which were later formally diagnosed as bipolar disorder.
She described her internal state by recalling having mind flights that other people didn't seem to have.
This internal chaos was so severe and so profound that she tragically attempted suicide at the age of 14.
That is heartbreaking context, and it fundamentally changes the lens through which we view her entry into acting.
It does. She wasn't just looking for a job or for fame. She viewed acting as a vital, almost therapeutic outlet.
She felt that on stage or in front of a camera, she could let my real self out, and no one would know it was me.
It became a controlled, safe space to channel the tremendous, almost unmanageable intensity she felt internally.
A form of self-medication through expression. And crucially, her development wasn't just artistic, it was highly political, again, thanks to her family.
Right. She specifically credited her early interest in political issues to the arguments her parents would have around the dinner table.
Her mother had distinct socialist or left-leaning political tendencies, while her father was firmly a conservative Republican.
That environment forced her to confront multiple, strongly held viewpoints and the necessity of independent thought from childhood.
It sounds like the perfect training ground for someone who would later become one of Hollywood's most outspoken political voices.
Educationally, she moved frequently, eventually graduating from Havergal College, a high school-level boarding school in Toronto, in 1966.
And it was that same year, 1966, that the sources document an event that underscores the vulnerability and lack of options available to women at that time.
And the profound trauma she endured.
Yes. The sources include the devastating detail that she had an illegal abortion arranged by her boyfriend, in which the unqualified abortionist used Lysol to terminate the pregnancy.
This detail, shared in her later years, provides immense context for the deep personal pain she carried and the systemic issues she later fought against. It's just horrific.
After graduating and facing that harrowing experience, she briefly attended the University of British Columbia.
But her focus quickly shifted. She dropped out after only 1 year and returned to Toronto, where she found work as a model.
Which set the stage for her entry into acting in the latter half of the 1960s.
Her television debut arrived with an episode of Wojciech in January 1968.
And she immediately moved into what we might call the burgeoning Canadian New Wave cinema, including the 1968 production The Best Damn Fiddler from Calabogie to Caladar. Very raw regional work.
But it was quickly recognized. Her 1969 appearance in an episode of the Canadian drama series Corwin earned her a significant early accolade.
A Canadian Film Award for Outstanding New Talent.
Which signals that she was seen as a major emerging talent right away, long before Lois Lane.
Her career soon started its international trajectory. Her first major U.S. feature was the 1969 period comedy, Gaily, where she played a prostitute.
The role was small, but it signaled her move across the border.
Setting up the complex, dual nature of her career, always working in both the massive U.S. industry and the smaller, more artistic Canadian film landscape.
Moving into the 1970s, Kidder made some key geographical and artistic pivots.
She initially moved to Los Angeles, but she recognized she needed more training.
After filming Quacks Her Fortune Has a Cousin in the Bronx in 1970, where she starred opposite Gene Wilder, she made the decisive choice to relocate to New York.
She went there specifically to dedicate herself to further acting studies, which really shows she was serious about the craft, not just the fame.
It's interesting to note her mindset at this time. She was actually quite ambivalent about a traditional Hollywood film career.
In a 1970 interview on The Dick Cavett Show, she mentioned she was considering a future as a film editor.
Having apprenticed assisting the famed director Robert Altman on Brewster McCloud.
Which highlights a consistent pattern. She always preferred being behind the camera, or in control, rather than simply being the glamorous subject of the camera.
That preference for control quickly collided with her undeniable talent in front of the camera. She returned to California and was cast in the Brian De Palma film Sisters in 1972.
Okay, let's unpack this shift, because this is where her career gets really interesting in terms of genre and artistic risk.
Sisters is a crucial marker in her filmography. At the time, she was romantically involved with De Palma.
And he cast her in this demanding, central role, a woman who is one of a pair of formerly conjoined twins, one of whom may be a brutal murderer.
The film is a masterful piece of psychological suspense, heavily influenced by Hitchcock.
And the significance of Sisters cannot be overstated. It was more than just a horror flick. It gained critical recognition immediately.
Critically acclaimed writers, like Robin Wood, considered it among the best American films of the decade.
This established her early reputation not as a blockbuster actress, but as a fearless performer willing to delve into the deepest, darkest psychological territory.
Which contrasts so starkly with the light comedic persona she would later develop as Lois Lane.
Her deep roots in Canadian cinema continued to bear fruit, often through the horror genre. In 1974, she starred in the seminal slasher film Black Christmas.
which is now considered a foundational piece of the genre.
For that performance, alongside her work in the war drama A Quiet Day in Belfast, she secured another Canadian Film Award for Best Actress.
So this duality winning major awards for both visceral horror and serious drama, it just demonstrates her incredible range.
During this time, she even tried to move back toward that controlling role she desired. In 1974, she directed a 50-minute short film for the American Film Institute titled Again.
The film was about a woman trying to find Mr. Right by pasting photos of her former lovers on her wall.
But her directing ambitions suffered a significant setback, one that perfectly illustrates her innate resistance to corporate manipulation.
Right? In 1975, she was hired to direct a documentary about the making of the film The Missouri Breaks.
Starring Marlon Brando and Jack Nicholson, a huge deal.
But she recalled being fired because she filmed all the behind-the-scenes rows and arguments.
And, more controversially, she filmed footage of the vet tranquilizing the horses to make the lead actors look like they rode well.
That is fantastic context. They wanted a puff piece, a publicity film, and she delivered an honest documentary.
It shows her preference for raw truth over Hollywood gloss, even if it cost her the job.
Exactly. But her film momentum was still growing rapidly. In 1975, she had a central supporting role in The Great Waldo Pepper,
where she shared the screen with Robert Redford and Susan Sarandon.
She also starred in the psychological horror The Reincarnation of Peter Proud, where Variety praised her performance as outstandingly rich.
And she co-starred with Peter Fonda in '92 in The Shade, directed by her future husband, Thomas McGuane.
All of this was trajectory, but then came the role. The one single role that would permanently define her life and legacy, for better or worse.
In 1977, after a brief hiatus, Kidder read for the role of Lois Lane in the ambitious Richard Donner production Superman, the movie.
And this was just 1 month before principal photography was scheduled to begin.
They flew her to England for the screen test. The director, Richard Donner, was looking for a very specific type of Lois Lane.
Ambitious, fast-talking, brilliant.
But possessing a crucial, relatable flaw. The sources detailed the now legendary casting anecdote.
Upon entering the room, Margot Kidder actually tripped.
Donner recounted that he instantly fell in love with her. He called her clumsy behavior perfect for the role.
It captured the essence of a woman whose mind was always moving faster than her body. She was cast, and the 18 months of intensive filming began.
Superman was released in 1978 and became an immediate, massive commercial phenomenon, grossing $300 million worldwide.
Critics generally adored her work. They recognized the challenging tightrope she walked.
Vincent Canby in the New York Times deemed her most charming, noting how she anchored the human side of the story.
And Sonia Saraiya of Vanity Fair offered what is perhaps the most precise insight into her performance.
Praising her ability to balance Lois's ditzy nature with her ambition and no-nonsense attitude.
Saraiya emphasized that Kidder portrayed a believable, complex human woman who could attract a man who was canonically perfect.
And that role earned her the Saturn Award for Best Actress, a major validation of her blockbuster work.
Immediately solidifying her stardom, Kidder transitioned straight into another box office giant.
The supernatural horror film The Amityville Horror in 1979, where she starred as Kathy Lutz.
It was a massive commercial success, grossing over $86 million in the U.S. alone.
What's fascinating here is the sheer range and, I guess, artistic compromise inherent in this ascent.
Well, while commercially successful, The Amityville Horror received mixed critical reviews.
And Kidder herself later dismissively and characteristically called the film a piece of shit.
So the 1970s saw her jump from low-budget Canadian drama and slasher horror to genre-defining work with De Palma, and finally to being an international Hollywood star.
Who didn't even like some of the blockbusters she made.
This set the precedent that her career would be defined by tension, never confined to a single lane.
As the 1980s began, the Superman phenomenon continued, and she reprised the role of Lois Lane in Superman II in 1980.
Another tremendous box office smash. It grossed $108 million in the United States. Commercially, she was untouchable.
But this success was immediately fraught with professional danger, which speaks volumes about her principled character.
She became involved in a very public and highly vocal dispute with the franchise producers, Alexander and Ilya Salkind.
And the issue was their replacement of her beloved director, Richard Donner,
who had filmed much of the sequel, but was subsequently removed from the project.
This public stand was typical of Kidder's unwavering commitment to authenticity and loyalty. She simply refused to be silent about what she saw as a wrong against her friend and mentor.
And connecting the dots professionally, this disagreement had severe consequences for her standing within the franchise.
Her public criticism reportedly led to her significantly reduced screen time in the subsequent film, Superman III, which was released in 1983.
The sources show just how dramatically minimized her role was. A mere 12 lines and less than 5 minutes of footage in total.
And while the producers officially denied that her criticism was the reason for her sidelining, the timing, and the dramatic reduction, they speak for themselves.
It was a stark lesson in the political realities of the Hollywood system she so often scorned.
Despite the professional tensions, though, the deep personal relationships forged during filming remained her anchor.
The sources highlight the close friendship she maintained with her co-star, Christopher Reeve, which lasted from 1978 until his death in 2004.
She described this unique bond to CBS, explaining that the extreme and often grueling nature of filming action sequences created an unbreakable trust.
She said, "When you're strapped to someone hanging from the ceiling for months and months, you get pretty darn close."
That intimacy was a rare and lasting achievement in an industry based on transient relationships.
Shifting to her life outside of the studio, which was arguably more dramatic than anything she filmed, her personal life during this period was characterized by volatility and intense brief connections.
Her marriages, by her own later admission, were often impulsive.
If we trace this back, the dynamic began during the production of 92 in the Shade. While working on that film, she became romantically involved with novelist and director Thomas McQueen.
They relocated to Livingston, Montana, where she sought a life away from the Hollywood grind. They had a daughter born in the mid-1970s.
They married in August 1976, but the marriage was short-lived, ending in divorce in July 1977.
She later reflected that while in Montana, her self-esteem faltered, and she found it genuinely difficult to maintain her burgeoning film career while living so far from the production centers.
It was a classic conflict between the celebrity life and the desire for normalcy.
Her subsequent marriage was even more fleeting, which really underscores the turbulence she was navigating.
She married actor John Hurd in August 1979, but they separated after only 6 days.
6 days. The divorce was finalized in December 1980. These were not lengthy, considered decisions, but rapid, intense commitments followed by quick separations.
And perhaps one of the most unexpected links in her personal history, the sources mention she was romantically linked to the then Canadian Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau in the early 1980s.
Which further illustrates how her orbit consistently moved between Hollywood, American celebrity culture, and the highest echelons of Canadian political life.
She married for a third time to Philippe de Broca in 1983. But this too was brief, dissolving in divorce in 1984.
She characterized this string of relationships simply as impulsive and, looking back, irresponsible.
Given her later diagnosis, it raises an important question. Was there a pattern here, or were they simply a side effect of that high-pressure fame?
They certainly reflect an internal instability she had not yet understood or treated.
And that internal instability mirrored her professional ambivalence in the mid-'80s. In 1985, she gave interviews where she expressed deep, conflicting feelings about her career path.
She was quoted as saying she felt uncomfortable as a performer and conceded she was a big turkey as a movie star.
She later tried to walk back some of those quotes, saying they were taken out of context.
However, she admitted she was in a weird frame of mind, recognizing that acting might not be enough for the rest of her life.
Especially since the business is very hard on women at a certain age.
She was actively anxious to transition into directing and have options that weren't dependent on her physical appearance or age-appropriate roles.
This complicated, tension-filled decade concluded with her return for the final film in the original series, Superman IV. The Quest for Peace, which she filmed in 1986 and was released in 1987.
That was the pre-catastrophe finale for the first major phase of her life.
The transition from the 1980s to the 1990s brought profound personal catastrophe that would forever alter the course of Margot Kidder's life and career.
In the fall of 1990, while she was filming the pilot for a proposed television series called Nancy Drew and Daughter, Kidder was involved in a severe car crash.
And this was not a minor accident. The crash severely injured her spine, leaving her temporarily paralyzed.
The physical trauma was immense, and it immediately led to severe financial fallout that was just devastating for her.
The sources detail how she was unable to work for 2 years due to the injury and convalescence, accumulating massive debts.
exceeding $800,000.
For an actress who had earned blockbuster wages, this level of debt reveals how volatile her financial management was, likely due to her undiagnosed mental health issues.
She attempted to fight back against this ruin by suing the Canadian producer Nelvana for damages, seeking $1 million.
However, she never received a settlement. And adding insult to injury, the act of launching the lawsuit made her ineligible for Canadian workers' compensation.
It left her financially stranded.
While convalescing from the physical crash, she finally reached a point of acceptance regarding her mental health struggles.
She stated that she was able to accept the diagnosis of bipolar disorder.
She'd actually received this diagnosis back in 1988, 2 years before the crash, but had previously rejected it.
Right, along with the recommended lithium treatment. It took the physical devastation and the subsequent 2 years of forced stillness for her to finally confront the underlying issue.
The issue that had driven her impulsivity, her financial excesses, and her internal chaos for decades.
And this struggle culminated in the highly publicized breakdown of 1996.
We must approach this subject with immense sympathy. It was a deeply private and distressing moment that was violently forced into the public eye and media frenzy.
This event actually raises an important modern question about information overload, digital reliance, and mental health crises.
The immediate trigger for her severe manic episode was almost cruelly specific, yet entirely relatable in the digital age.
She was actively working on her autobiography when a computer virus crashed her laptop, causing her to lose 3 full years' worth of drafts.
For someone already struggling with an unstable mental state, the catastrophic loss of 3 years of her life's work, her attempt to make sense of her own biography, was enough to sever her connection to reality.
Prompted by the loss of these files, she flew to California to try and retrieve them.
And when that failed, it triggered a severe manic state, and she disappeared for 4 days in Los Angeles.
The search was public, and the eventual discovery was harrowing. She was found by a homeowner in the backyard of a Glendale residence in a distressed state.
The Los Angeles Police Department took her to Olive View UCLA Medical Center, where she was placed in psychiatric care.
It is crucial to note the specific, horrific detail included in the sources related to her time missing.
Her physical appearance indicated immense trauma. The caps on her teeth had been knocked out during what authorities determined was a rape attempt that occurred during her disappearance.
It's truly difficult to comprehend the amount of pain and trauma that was compressed into those 4 days and the years leading up to it.
The sources also provide more context on the long-term financial cost of her undiagnosed episodes. She stated that her manic states led to significant financial woes,
including spending millions of dollars. She admitted she had no idea how much, on friends and trips, sometimes emptying her accounts entirely.
She recalled one instance where she stayed awake for 3 weeks because she felt called upon to write a new religion for women.
It perfectly illustrates the level of uncontrolled energy and delusion she experienced when unmedicated.
After this intense public breakdown, Kidder made a powerful and commendable pivot.
She transformed the highly public crisis into a profound platform for advocacy.
She became one of Hollywood's most prominent mental health advocates, speaking openly about her struggles, her diagnosis, and the necessity of treatment.
This transformation from victim of trauma to courageous public advocate earned her widespread recognition. For this outspoken public dialogue, she was awarded the Courage and Mental Health Award in 2001.
Her ability to take the worst moment of her life and use it to help others is a defining characteristic of her resilience.
And despite the physical injuries, the financial ruin, and the crises, she maintained a steady work pace throughout the 1990s and 2000s.
Proving her tenacity, she primarily shifted her focus back to independent films and television, where she had more control.
This period included diverse projects like Never Met Picasso in 1997, where she played an actress living with her gay adult son.
And The Annihilation of Fish in 1999, playing a landlady, the kinds of raw, character-driven projects she genuinely loved.
She also took on some highly unexpected roles, reflecting her willingness to take work wherever she found it.
This included an uncredited cameo in the comedy film Delirious in 1991, and a role in a PC adventure game, Under a Killing Moon, in 1994.
And one particularly curious entry on her filmography is her appearance in Apocalypse the Third, Tribulation in 2000.
A Christian eschatology film dealing with the rapture.
Kidder later admitted that she did not realize the movie was intended to be taken seriously, as in literal religious doctrine, until she was actually on set filming it.
Which shows her unique and sometimes oblivious approach to filtering projects.
As we move into the 2000s, we see a clear pattern emerging. a resurgence in her career visibility combined with a deepening of her commitment to activism.
Almost as if she channeled her manic energy into fighting for political causes rather than internal chaos.
And what is particularly resonant for fans of the Superman universe is her thoughtful return to the franchise in 2004.
Not as Lois Lane, but in 2 episodes of the series Smallville.
She played Bridget Crosby, an emissary of the character Dr. Swan, who was portrayed by her longtime friend, Christopher Reeve.
This allowed for an incredibly poignant full-circle reunion, as she was acting opposite Reeve, whose own life had been so tragically altered by paralysis.
It was a beautiful moment of shared history and enduring friendship on screen.
Her late-career TV work remained diverse and continued to show her commitment to socially relevant roles. She had guest roles in The L Word in 2006.
As Sandy Ziskin, who is Jenny Schechter's highly repressed mother grappling with her daughter's sexuality.
Then, in 2015, she received significant recognition, winning a Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Performer in Children's Programming for her performance in R.L. Stine's anthology series, The Haunting Hour.
But the defining theme of the 2000s, eclipsing her acting, was her political fervor.
She maintained her outspoken nature and took a major formal step that year.
Absolutely. A key turning point was her decision to become a U.S. citizen in Butte, Montana on August 17, 2005.
This wasn't a move motivated by convenience or tax breaks. She explicitly stated her motivation.
She wanted the right to vote, the ability to continue her protests against U.S. intervention in Iraq without fear of being deported.
That rationale perfectly captures her character. She essentially formalized her citizenship in order to be a more effective political irritant.
She was a longtime supporter of the Democratic Party and liberal causes, endorsing figures like Jesse Jackson and Walter Mondale, and later supporting Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders.
Her political action wasn't limited to voting. As the Montana State Coordinator for Progressive Democrats of America, she authored a highly critical article titled Axe Max, targeting Montana's Democratic Senator Max Baucus.
She was always willing to critique her own side.
Her dissent reached a peak following the 2016 election cycle. In a highly critical counterpunch article published after the Democratic National Convention, she expressed profound disappointment.
Including a controversial statement, "I am not an American tonight. I reject the words I voiced at my citizenship ceremony."
This demonstrates the intense emotional and intellectual weight she placed on political outcomes.
Beyond traditional electoral politics, her activism was fundamentally rooted in direct action, particularly for environmental and anti-war causes.
She was willing to put her own body on the line, accepting the legal and physical risks involved.
This direct action is a crucial part of her late-life identity. On August 23, 2011, she was arrested in Washington, D.C.
while protesting the proposed extension of the Keystone Pipeline, alongside the noted Canadian actress Tantu Cardinal.
She used her visibility and the resulting media coverage to amplify the issue. In 2012, she appeared in a video for Stop the Frack Attack.
She consistently emphasized that these issues were not just environmental but economic. She stressed that a sustainable approach and long-term economic stability go hand in hand.
Her dedication to environmental protection culminated in one of her final, most physically demanding activist efforts.
She spent the entire winter of 2016-2017 residing in a tent at the Standing Rock Reservation in North Dakota, protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline.
The sources are clear that enduring those frigid temperatures and living conditions took a heavy toll, negatively impacting her health in her later years.
She chose political action over physical comfort, even when facing significant health risks.
And we should also note her consistent and vocal support for LGBT rights, which speaks to the breadth of her social justice advocacy.
She hosted benefits at a gay and lesbian health center in Boston in 2003, long before such support was universally fashionable in mainstream Hollywood.
Margot Kidder leveraged her fame to be precisely where the fight was, regardless of the consequences.
Turning now to the tragic conclusion of her remarkable life. Margot Kidder died on May 13, 2018, at the age of 69, at her home in Livingston, Montana.
We must state the ruling factually and with compassion, given her lifelong public struggle with mental illness. Her death was officially ruled as suicide,
caused by a self-inflicted drug and alcohol overdose.
This tragedy occurred despite her maintaining a busy schedule. She had been scheduled to appear at the Motor City Comic-Con later that same week.
The sources convey that in her final years, her health was poor, particularly following the lengthy, harsh stay at the Standing Rock protest camp in North Dakota.
She had spent a lifetime fighting for causes and fighting her own mind. and ultimately the fight became too much.
However, even in discussing her passing, the sources reveal a unique and deeply personal final statement about her connection to the wild Montana landscape she called home.
A place she had sought refuge in since the 1970s.
This is a fascinating and profoundly moving aspect of her final wishes, stemming from her deep, almost spiritual love of the wild and the wolves that inhabited the foot of Canyon Mountain outside Livingston.
A friend of hers related a highly unusual request, one that only someone with her specific, raw connection to nature could conceive. She loved the wolves near her property and often left meat out for them.
And she asked her closest friends that if they ever stopped by her place and found her dead, they were to tell no one.
Her wish was intense and primal. Instead of a conventional burial, they were to place her naked body in a bedsheet, drag it up Canyon Mountain, and leave her there for her other friends, the wolves.
It was a desire to return her body to the natural system she had spent her final years protecting.
While that specific dramatic wish was not carried out, her brother, John, did follow through with a partial fulfillment of her broader desire.
He scattered her cremated ashes in childhood favorite locations in Canada and in Montana, amongst lilies that are often eaten by grizzly bears.
Partially fulfilling Kidder's broader wish to have her body just left out there for the bears.
If we connect this back to the bigger picture, Margot Kidder represents a generation of highly visible performers who actively refuse to be neatly defined by their most famous roles.
She used the platform that global stardom gave her to pursue critical political and social advocacy, often at immense personal and professional cost.
Remaining true to that deeply felt impulse toward raw authenticity that marked her earliest days in Yellowknife.
She was a performer who consistently put truth ahead of comfort or career stability. She will also appear posthumously in the psychological thriller Robber's Roost, which will be her final film role.
We have just completed an analysis of a life defined by the intersection of global fame, profound mental health struggle, and unwavering principled advocacy.
Her story is a powerful reminder that living with true authenticity and integrity rarely allows for a quiet life, especially when coupled with the severe personal challenges that she faced.
Considering her lifelong dedication to fighting corporate influence, which cost her jobs and injured her health, and her unusual final wishes, that deep desire for her body to be returned to the wild, reflect on the inherent tension between the very public life of a Hollywood actress and the profound desire for connection to nature and raw authenticity that defined her later years.
Thank you for joining us for this in-depth discussion of the source material pertaining to the remarkable life and legacy of Margot Kidder.
Thanks for listening.